No, I think that whole thing. I think it's synesthesia. I remember the expression synesthesia. It means the blending of the senses.
Yeah.
I remember having a nasty experience once.
We have to have a break because his arm is falling off. Sorry. Und zurück bei Fast Forward im Aquarium in Köln mit Robyn Hitchcock. My boyfriend has two most favourite records of you. That is, I Often Dream of Trains and I.
Oh right,
what would you say? Sort of what do these two records represent? Sort of your state of mind in the earlier days.
Yeah, they represent my state of mind in sort of like 83 and 88, 9 respectively.
Yeah, but what does it mean sort of career-wise?
Oh, well,
records?
What it means is that every so often I just have to do something on my own and get rid of everybody. I mean, I usually find pretty good people to work with.
Yeah.
But inevitably, the chemistry changes. You know how, like, if there's a group of people, every time you add or subtract somebody,
the chemical stuff changes.
And my songs, or the arrangements and performances of my songs, the records, change very drastically according to who's on them.
Yeah.
And every so often, I need to just kind of take all the outside influences away and produce a record completely by myself. And I think those are probably my most honest records because they are not done in any way by committee. They probably have even less commercial appeal than the other records. And they don't have some of the great hook lines that other players have put in, you know. Bass players particularly over the years have put in some great hook lines and things, but there's a purity to them that I like. I think but it sounds kind of egotistical because it's like saying I just want to hear me. But I did listen to I the other day and I thought it was pretty good. I hadn't heard it for about 10 years. Trains is.
But it is sort of
quite good as well.
How would you say not dark or something, but sort of
somber.
Grim.
I think somber is the word.
Yeah, somber.
Grim is more like the wall of a factory in a howling gale, or somebody sliding down the outside of an iron ship with their fingernails, or whatever, Düsseldorf on a wet January afternoon or something with a mouthful of ice cubes. But I would say it was more somber. It's kind of dark, if you see what I mean. And I think I was probably. But my stuff usually is quite dark, really. And without other musicians, that's its natural level. Occasionally it's funny, mostly it's dark. The I record was made in a particularly sort of heavy period of my life. I was managing to break up with two people at once, and I was terribly confused about an awful lot of things. And I was also sort of I was becoming quite successful on the American alternative scene.
That would be my next question.
But I'm glad because I managed to do that thing that John Lennon used to say, that, he wanted to make records like newspapers, that you felt something, you wrote it down and you put it out. And nearly all the songs on I were written and recorded quite fast. And so there's quite a direct...
2 days or whatever.
Some of them. And so it must be fairly honest. Sometimes there are songs where I'm actually singing about some experience from 20 years ago, and it's taken me 20 years to actually be able to process that experience. I was processing my feelings very fast. Trains was more of a dreamy record, being disconnected from everything. And is probably easier to take. I is a bit more naked. There's fewer overdubs. But I'm very proud of that. And again, they're different. It's a very different feel from something like Underwater Moonlight.
Definitely, And I would like to talk about America now. Because I always found it very funny that you were always more successful in America, you could say. Why do you think, do Americans sort of refer to your music stronger?
Well, the sun always sets in the west, you know, so you always wind up there.
Yeah.
I think it's just because in the early 80s, when the Soft Boys was defunct, and then even I stopped making music for a year or two, and I was writing lyrics for Captain Sensible and doing odd jobs, and I wasn't doing gigs or anything.
Yeah.
So I essentially vanished, and we'd never had a very high profile. These records started turning up in the States, and people didn't really know whether we existed or not. They thought, well, this sounds good, but what is it, and who are they, and you know, who is this Hitchcock guy, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And this cult built up around the Soft Boys and me, my first 2 solo albums. And then when I sort of put Off and Dream of Trains out in '84, and then started doing a few gigs in Britain,
yeah.
Suddenly all these people were ringing up from the States going, wow, do you want to come over here and do gigs? Hey, we can release your record. And my career's been based there ever since. But in other words, there was that element of mystery about them. And I think it really took root in America more than anywhere else. I mean, there must have been a few places in Germany and France and Italy where people were finding these records.
Yeah.
But it might be just actually, this is almost like talking about weather conditions. A lot of copies of...
It's to understand why certain countries develop a great love for something and others don't. It's just sort of...
I think it actually might be as simple as the fact that I know Underwater Moonlight, when it was shipped out, they sold about 10,000 copies, and 7,000 were exported to the United States.
Yeah.
And my solo album probably sold fewer, but maybe of the 6,000 that sold, 4,000 went to America.
Yeah.
So somebody was importing this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I know Georgia, for instance. Peter Buck used to work in a record shop in Athens, and he told me that he discovered my stuff because he was selling it. I've met a lot of people. Scott McCoy said the same thing, and a lot of people I meet in the States who are now in their late 30s or whatever, early 40s, say, hey man, I used to work in a record shop, we used to get your record in, then I formed a band. So it just, somebody decided to ship this stuff over to the States.
Yeah. And then others decided to sell it.
Yeah, and you know, they might have decided to ship it to Dusseldorf, but they didn't, or to Florence, or you know, whatever, or to Trondheim. But they didn't, or not in very large quantities. They decided to ship it to the States, and you know, maybe some guy with a pen and a book who said, "Well, I think we'll send these to Atlanta, Georgia, because they won't know what to do with them there. They won't ask for their money back. And that's these people in Boston. They won't complain. We'll give them 1,000."
Yeah.
And that was his arbitrary decision. I assume it was a him.
Yeah.
And so the American youth of a certain kind of age and time was saturated in my stuff, our stuff, and they didn't know whether we existed or not, you know.
You were made up.
So they thought, or you know, or you know, Sid Barrett who'd come back in drag or something like that. They didn't know.
Yeah.
So it all contributed to some element of mystery, and I've basically lived off that ever since. I live in Britain and I work in the States.
Yeah.
I commute.
Hopping.
Yeah.
Pendler.
Hopping like a frog. What's that?
Pendler is when you live outside and work in town. You're a pendler.
Pendler. I like a pendler. Like a pendulum. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And now.
Ich bin doch ein Pendler.
Genau.
Oh, so.
Du bist und siehst aus wie ein Pendler. Nein.
Ja.
Nein.
Oh, no. Nein.
That was an insult.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I didn't mean it.
You have to play that one back on the video.
No, I said you look like a pendler, but that's a stupid insult. Now that Underwater Moonlight is being re-released again, what are sort of the near future plans? Are you going to tour all over Europe, or?
Well, we as usual, we go where we're asked. I mean, I go where I'm asked solo, and the Soft Boys, who are now mysteriously reconstituted, I know we've got a big American tour coming up.
Yeah.
We've got a British tour. There's offers coming in from Spain. Yeah, that's based around the fact that we wanted to do the South by Southwest Festival.
Yeah.
Then we've got Britain, and then I think there's some offers from Spain and Italy and stuff. So, you know, we come to Germany if somebody offers us. Yeah. I suspect
this year probably.
Probably later in the year.
Yeah.
I think Italy and Germany would be later.
Yeah.
We've got to have a break for the summer, but yeah, we could be all over the place.
Super. So everybody has to invite you quickly if you're going where you're wanted.
You have to ring our agent.
Writen Sie letters. Inviten Sie. Yes. And this is the final question already. Will there be any more solo stuff in the near future of yours?
Well, my next album is actually a book. I've been working on this novel for about
I know.
5, 6, 7 years. Oh, you know, right.
Yes,
okay.
yes. And it's finished.